We are thrilled to be having a conversation today about fashion and technology. I'm Emma Rosenblum. I'm the editor-in-chief of Bustle Digital Group's lifestyle portfolio. So I oversee 5 brands there, including Bustle, which is the largest digital publisher for millennial women. And I'd like to introduce our guests here. First, we have Duffy. He is the co-founder of Special Guest. And here's Wainwright. He's the co-founder and designer of Rag & Bone. Clap, yes. Let's clap for everybody, okay? Let's clap for me too, thanks. And here's Alicia Tillman, and she is the Chief Marketing Officer of SAP, which is also one of our sponsors. So as I said, the talk today is really going to focus on fashion and tech and innovation. We've had editors from Bustle and Nylon and the Zoe Report out and about at Fashion Week, and they've all come back and really been impressed with the show's innovation this year and the technology that a lot of different designers are using, which I think even in the past 5 years has really taken off. So it's an issue that's super important to the industry and will be for the foreseeable future. And so I think just to start, let's go with Marcus and say congratulations on your amazing show. It was a huge hit. And yes, clap. And it's a return for Rag & Bone to Fashion Week after 3 years. So I just wanted to first off ask you, why are you back? We're happy, but why?
Yeah. I ask myself the same question sometimes. I mean, I've been asked the question a lot. I think, we stopped doing fashion shows about 3 years ago because it felt like it was very formulaic. What we were doing, in my opinion, was we were trying to innovate, trying to break up the sort of classic fashion show setup, but it just didn't feel relevant anymore for me. So we moved on from the sort of classic runway setup to doing all sorts of experiential things, some of it for an audience and some of it film-based, some of it dinner. We had a dinner in February with an AI machine, which was quite crazy, which Aaron helped with. But we were just exploring different ways of looking at fashion, different ways of presenting fashion, and different ways of communicating and creating content. And in some instances, it wasn't even really about the fashion. It was just about creating something that stood alone as a piece of art, or stood alone as a statement about what Rag & Bone stood for and why we think the way we think. I think coming back to Fashion Week, we've always sort of done something in Fashion Week, but coming back to a normal show setup where you have clothes on models felt like timely. I don't really know why. It felt like time to integrate like what we used to do with what we had been doing with the technology and the different ways of sort of seeing clothes. And we wanted it to be something memorable. I mean, if you're going to take, I always used to hear from editors like, oh, Fashion Week is so boring. And, it's 3,000 shows a day for like 3 months, and it's painful. So we wanted it, if we were going to ask for an hour of someone's time, we wanted it to be something memorable, and we wanted something that communicated everything that we sort of think of as a brand about not just clothes, but the experience that people have at a fashion show and the experience that people have seeing clothes. And so that's a very long-winded answer to, it just felt like the right time. Yeah.
And then this show specifically, though, did use tech in a really innovative way. And if you want to explain a little bit about the tech that you used in the show, the robot arm and the way that the screens were used, how that you think boosted the guest experience?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working with Aaron on various different projects, experimenting with how people see clothes. I think one of the impetuses for me leaving Fashion Week was that I used to look on the monitor at the back when I'm doing all the clothes and sending them out, and people were consuming the show through their phone. Yeah. And that really wound me up. Like I spent all of this time and effort on this an analog experience, but everyone's looking at it through their phone, and it gets you thinking that. And so the tech in this one was really about how you see clothes and trying to introduce various different perspectives, as many different perspectives as we possibly could, to the experience of being at a fashion show, but the experience of seeing clothes rather than that sort of straight up two-dimensional image of someone walking down a runway. How could you shift the perspective? How could you shift the viewer's perspective of what clothes are? They're seeing it in real life, but how could you add to that experience? So the robot arm, I mean, he can answer that probably better than I can. The robot arm and the point cloud element and just the choreography of the camera was a huge sort of part of the concept to try and add to the experience.
And is there something you want to add?
Yeah, there were two. To add to that, there are two main components to the technology that was used. One was programming a robot that was slightly pre-programmed, but also slightly changing what it was doing in real time as the show was going on, which I can talk about, has its risks, obviously. And then the other part was a point cloud capture and a camera capture that was on the head of the robot. So when Marcus is talking about seeing the clothes, the robot in a way was like this creature that was seeing the clothes in different ways. This is an extension of a film project that we did together in 2018 called Why Can't We Get Along, which had analog camera rigs that were not so technological, but still allowed you to see things in different ways, like a camera that would arch over the top or would swing like a pendulum. The robot was like the tech version of that, and so we got to see video views as well as point cloud views, and point cloud views are not quite, they're kind of like video views, except it sees the world in depth. So it sends out like a LiDAR array, and you get to see someone in volume rather in colored pixels. Yeah.
So, and this could be for all of you. Where do you feel that for an experience like this, that tech could possibly cross the line into gimmickry, or where do you feel like you need to pull back to really make it about, I mean, it is about the clothes, right? You want people to actually be looking at the clothes and experiencing that. Is that something that you guys grapple with? And also SAP as a company thinking about the consumer experience in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I would say there is definitely a line. And I think it's about how does technology help enhance the authenticity of the product or the brand. And once it starts to go beyond that, then that's when you start to get into this zone of it being a gimmick. And the product starts to become entirely lost on the consumer. And, I would suspect that's not at all what Marcus ever wants to see happen. And so, technology has become such a vital part of how we operate as human beings in life. And I think, if you were to break it down and simplify it into two use cases, there's the wearable technology piece, and then there is technology used to enhance the experience that surrounds the product itself. But it always has to be grounded in this notion of authenticity. And, I think that that's where Fashion Week has taken advantage of it. I think you started to see it a lot last year, and certainly that's when SAP started to debut technology last year. But how do you both help connect designers with their consumers so that what's being produced is going to be embraced? But how do you also create an experience around the designs? Because today, one of the things that we found is you have a product, but you also have an experience which leads to a community. And when you buy into a brand, you're buying into a sense of community. That's usually based on common values, things that you have, that you like, that you dislike, where you come together. But at the core of it is a product that you all believe in. And the more you can use technology to enhance that surrounding community and surrounding experience, the more it enables you to create something that for today is what consumers are after, to be able to embrace the brand more fully and over a longer period of time.
And Marcus, oh no, please go ahead.
I was just going to add one other bit to what Alicia was saying, because there is like what Marcus was saying, which is the technology providing other ways of seeing the clothes. There's also the technology sort of pairing with how to create a more authentic view of what's going on. And then I think there's also something I I don't actually work in fashion as often. Like Marcus has like brought me into this world that I didn't know that much about. But the more that I've done it over the last 3 years, the more I feel like these shows or films or like the dinner event, whatever we get to do, the fashion context gets people thinking a little bit more about how these things will exist in culture moving forward. And so the fact that we get to use technology in this format, in these kind of side worlds, I think they go well beyond any kind of gimmicky world into getting us to think about what is our existence going to be with AI moving forward? What is it going to be with robots more and more in our presence? And so that's not happening as much in other formats. You know, I mean, maybe in an art museum or things like that, but definitely in the fashion context, because we're thinking about what are we going to look like? What is like culture forward, and technology is obviously a part of that.
Marcus, where in the design process do you begin to think about how you're going to present the clothes and the ways that technology could actually help that and or enhance the show? Is it the beginning, or is it you've really created the collection and then you go and brainstorm with Aaron? How does that work?
Yeah, the clothes aren't really necessarily designed in the context of how they're going to be presented technology-wise, or we don't. I sort of separate those two things. I think Rag and Bone for me, or me personally, the analog experience is very, very important to me. And so the clothing is always going to be a very analog experience. Not always, but it is that sort of touch and feel of something very truly real and authentic. And Rag and Bone is about that authenticity and that sort of realness. That said, though, the technology and the ability to work with the technology to expand the view of how people see the clothes is very inspiring to me at the same time. And so I really want to thank companies like SAP for sort of supporting a fashion industry where there's not an obvious connection, certainly in a fashion show, to technology. And I think that's, in some ways, fashion's been very late to the game in terms of how it engages with technology, particularly in the runway show, which has been the same format for 50 years. And bringing technology into it, I think, is really inspiring. I think I live my life thinking about the balance between the analog experience and the technology side. You spend too much of your time. I spend too much of my time in my phone. I don't spend nearly as much time as some people, but you can't really experience life through your phone. And I think the ways that technology can bring about and heighten the experience of that analog part of what we do as a company that's inspiring to me. And so the clothes are one thing, and then the show experience is something where we are conscious of crossing the line into gimmickry and what the hell was that? It is about the clothes, but at the same time, is it all about the clothes? Right. I mean, what is fashion? I mean, that's getting a little bit out there, but what is it? I mean, does it have to conform to a certain set of rules about what fashion is? Your consumer is there to experience something. It is about the clothes, but it's about Rag and Bone. It's about how we view life, and it's about fashion. I think it's a dialogue. The show is, for us, more of a dialogue about what it could be.
Right.
How could we experience fashion? And
I think
weird there.
No, I think there is definitely a separation, and when we talk about the beginnings of these projects, it doesn't get into anything like wearable technology, like right. if you're going there with it. But I do think there's points of inspiration we take in that. I don't know that you can just put a robot and point cloud capture and things like that with any line of clothes, with any collection. I think there's innate tensions within the Rag and Bone collection that allows us to visualize other points of tension in the room. So because there's kind of a sporty look being sort of mashed up with a more formal look or traditional look, like those kinds of tensions are being made. So that allows us to create a tension between, is that robot being creepy and surveillance-y, or is it being playful and cute? And we can make those kinds of tensions in the room as well, because we're gonna we're going to deal with that. We're dealing with it already just in our regular lives more and more. So I think like being able to create shows about that, like narratively, we're always kind of looking for a narrative, but not heavy story, not like we need to follow like a love story or something. And so I think the tension is part of that.
That makes sense. It does. That it goes along with the actual aesthetic of the clothes. I mean, it wouldn't work as well that robot arm at a Herrera show. You would be like, what is this? But it makes sense with the leather jackets and with the it does. And you were asking Marcus, what is fashion? Is it what it actually is it for? And obviously, part of that answer is we're trying to make money here by selling clothes as well, and the company needs to grow. And so I wanted to ask Alicia how that, which is true, it's fine. We can all admit that. And I wanted to ask Alicia how the tech part of it could also enable a better consumer experience and could actually drive revenue for companies like Rag & Bone, if there's ways that SAP is working to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's what I would say is probably the other piece of how technology can be an enabler to brands. If we think about artificial intelligence and machine learning in particular at the point of sale. So, none of us, well, there's maybe a few who will know how to properly piece together an outfit. You go onto a brand's website and you're met with, everything categorized, by blazers, by dresses, by shirts, by shoes. But technology being able to help you style an outfit using things like artificial intelligence, that's a beautiful way to get people more into your brand, because one of the things that we hear often is, when we think about our drop rate from our e-commerce experience, it's usually because, it's not set up properly, it's really difficult to see how to piece together an outfit. Things are sort of designed based on style and how I would sort of pair together one piece versus another, and I'm there for a particular need. That's typically what drives a lot of drop rates out of e-commerce platforms. And so if you think about technology coming into that, and you're met by a stylist when you enter the site, who asks you your preferences, where are you going, and talk to us about your style, and what's your color palette generally look like? Is it casual? Is it formal? And all those sorts of questions, then to be able to then offer up outfits based on your preferences, that's a really dynamic use of technology that, to your point, helps to boost sales and overcome what often is the biggest driver of a drop-off rate from e-commerce platforms. So, I think it's how you can deploy this artificial intelligence technology to better help service the needs of the consumer based on their preferences to allow you to optimize what the brand is offering more. I would say that that's the most dynamic use of technology that I think works very well in support of the brand. That goes beyond the experiential part, wearable technology, or any of the lots of things that we see here at Fashion Week, but more about, okay, we're now talking about actually buying pieces. How do you make that happen to the average consumer if they're doing the predominant amount of shopping now from an e-commerce standpoint?
And Marcus, to go back to what you were saying about sort of the artistry of it, I think that's partly why, as you said, fashion has been resistant to technology, because there's this kind of, icky feeling about making their clothes, with AI, and people are styling you, but it's not real people. How do you feel about that from the designer standpoint?
About technology or about the stylist thing?
No, just about sort of using AI to drive consumers to the site and about innovating in that way.
It's a great question. Probably haven't got time for the longest answer I could possibly think of, but it is what it is. It's reality now. It might be artificial, but it's what's happening in the world. I think you can rail against technology as long as you want, but you just have to adapt, and you have to evolve and to work with it. And each brand, I think, is different, and everyone has their own perspective of how technology should interact with their brand. Some are going to dive in, head first, and everything's going to be tech, and it's and that's great for them. I think for us, having the AI power, the sort of back end, and the learning more about your customer side of things, that's great. I mean, it's just the way things happen these days, and you've got to learn. Otherwise, other people are going to be doing it, and you're going to lose out. How you deal with it on the front end, I think, is another way of thinking about it. And I think we're kind of embracing the idea that technology is part of our lives, and trying to create a dialogue around how it's part of our lives, and challenging some of preconceptions about AI. Which we had a dinner in February, which was really interesting to have an AI computer essentially be a guest at dinner, and it was sitting there, almost literally sitting there and listening to what we were doing and talking to us about what it thought. I mean, Aaron can probably explain this better than me, but it was pretty creepy. And I was just quite a relief to hear it wasn't like having a really good chat with everyone. It wasn't that good yet. But it was really interesting just to sort of face that on, sort of head on, and to see, just to start the conversation about it.
I think because of our relationship with science fiction films and things like that, there is always going to be, I don't know that we'll ever get past this feeling of like this versus that, like the way it used to be versus now how we're dealing with technology, and it's almost like we want that story to play out the way that we expect it to, but the truth is it's just really about data. It's just a lot of data, and now we're learning more and more how to parse that data. It's actually, I prefer to explain it in more of that boring way. Like, it's just a lot of data, and you can just like parse the data in different ways. When we had the dinner, I don't know if everyone here knows the Safdie brothers, but they were attending the dinner. They're amazing directors. And I just had to give like a little blurb at the beginning just to explain everyone sitting down at this dinner. There's AI here. It's you can see what it's seeing up on this screen. And then one of the Safdie brothers like, it's watching us now, like it's watching us right now. And he looked like pretty freaked out. And I was like, it's okay. It's like not recording anything, but yes, it's like can see you now. And what it was doing was it was using essentially capturing imagery, using a database of data that it had, and trying to match things that it was seeing with that database and saying, I know what that is. That is a dinner plate, and that is a dinner table. And now that I see that, it had another neural network that was basically algorithmically choosing what to say about that thing when it saw it. And so it would see a dinner table, and then it would just start talking about the dinner table, and we would have that text coming up on the screen so that people could see what it was thinking, so to speak. But oftentimes it would see someone walking with a plate and say, there's someone on the sidewalk with a Frisbee. And so the nice thing about that is that people in the room, and this was like very special for the people in the room, hard for people outside the room to experience, but it gave them that understanding, that moment of little bit of like fear, but then also just realizing it's just taking in information, and we've given it a couple ways of parsing that information, basically.
So to wrap up, final question for everybody. If there's any overarching thoughts on the future of fashion and tech, if you see a near-term future of everybody trying on their clothes in augmented reality, or is there anything, any sort of future predictions that all three of you can make? You don't have to.
I don't know. I would say we're going to see technology continue to manifest itself in wearable form. I think you'll continue to see it at the experiential level. And I think you'll also see it at the commerce level as well. How we can better enable brands to get in contact with the wants and needs and style of their consumers to help support, I think, both the design process as well as the buying process. I think that is going to be the biggest priority in fashion. Because the reality is regardless of what industry we're in, we live in an experience economy. And business is won or lost today, not only based on the quality of your product, but on the quality of the overall experience. And that spans many things, but notably the buying experience itself, what the brand stands for, the values of the brand, all of those things very much matter. And I think technology can help to be an enabler in all of that.
You can go.
As like I said earlier, I don't consider myself fashionable or understanding fashion very much specifically. I come from more the directing and tech consulting side of it, but selfishly, not being able to think about fashion that much. If I think about tech and fashion, I would like technology to help someone like me think about what is my style. Like, I take a more programmatic view of how I dress myself, which is I want to think about it as little as possible, and I just want to put the same thing on every day.
Sounds very male.
This is what I wear every day, just like a slightly different T-shirt, and so, but maybe technology can help me with that, and still keep it on this level that I want to feel comfortable, but I also want to feel like today I want to have something more, but I have either a fear of doing that, or I believe technology can help someone in my world, and this is maybe not, people in this room are more fashionable, know fashion better, but I think there's a lot of me's as well.
Well, I wanted to thank all three of you for this. Oh, did you? He said no, but if you've thought of it.
He was thinking.
Oh, good.
I don't have anything deep and meaningful to add to that necessarily. No, I mean, I hope that technology is obviously going to play a much more important role in all of our lives going forward. I personally hope that we can integrate it while maintaining the beauty of the analog experience at the same time. And I personally get very turned off by a heavy load of technology in a store, and I begin to feel like the disconnect from reality and the disconnect from what makes clothes essentially beautiful in the first place, which is that someone made them by hand and someone designed them, and they are physical things that make us feel a certain way. And I just hope that technology, and I think Rag & Bone will always endeavor to embrace the technology and to highlight how it can be used in different ways, but also understand that we have to balance it with the fact that clothes make you feel they make me feel a particular way, and that's the drive of Rag & Bone, is to make authentic clothes in an authentic way that make the wearer feel good about what they're wearing. It doesn't feel disposable. It also shouldn't feel too technological. You shouldn't feel like you were sold to. And there's that tension, which I think is important for us, that there's still the beauty of going to the store and trying some clothes on and having that human interaction, and that the technology should never overwhelm that.
Technology is working really well when it's invisible. I think everyone knows that, but it should just almost not be there.
All right, well, thank you for coming. So this is the end of part one of the talk. And so I wanted to say a special thank you to Aaron and to Marcus, and we really appreciate it. And this has been very fascinating, and I'm sure everybody has enjoyed hearing your perspective. So goodbye.
Bye.
And so here we go for number two. We've just been talking about a very interesting partnership between SAP and Rag & Bone, and now we want to talk about another one. Here to join us is Diane Quinn. She is the Chief Creative Officer. That's your right title, right? Of Cirque du Soleil.
Yes.
Which sounds like a job that somebody invented as a dream job, but you really have it. And so we're here to talk about the partnership between Cirque du Soleil and SAP. And so first, I just wanted to get a little bit of background on you, Diane, and how you became the Chief Creative Officer of Cirque du Soleil.
I invented that. No. I've my entire career I've been in live theater and in performance, and it's actually kind of boring story, but I was looking for a change, and for those of you who know Cirque du Soleil, we're based in Montreal, and I was in Toronto, and I was a little bored in my job in Toronto, and my husband and I both, true story, went online, both applied for jobs at Cirque du Soleil, both got jobs within 1 week of each other. He went to Frankfurt, and I went to start a new show in Montreal, and the rest is history.
And Alicia, can you tell us a little bit about the partnership that SAP has with Cirque du Soleil?
So first off, I mean, this is the coolest job on earth that Diane has. I
Yes.
mean, seriously, I mean, to be in charge of creative for what is the most creative brand on earth, really. I mean, and you got that job online.
Technology. It's all about technology.
Oh, I love it. So Cirque and SAP, Cirque's been a customer for 20 years, and we've been brand partners for 10. And it spans a few different things. You know, Turek, you know, their incredible show that is out now. We designed an application together with Cirque to bring the participant closer to the experience. One of the things that we have found is we've talked about with Cirque, you know, what is it about the show that keeps people coming back, and what are they asking for more? And you can describe a Cirque show, but it's very difficult unless you have the opportunity to see it, because there truly is nothing like the performance and the incredible artistry that you see that happens. And one of the things that we had learned is the consumer is craving more. They want to understand it. They're trying to demystify it. They want to think about it. They want to go talk about it. So whether it be pre-show, during show, or post-show, we created this application that enabled the consumer to do just that, was to learn more about it, experience more, have the contact with the performers and, you know, those that are behind all of the artistry and the innovation. And that's so much of been a big part of the experience itself. And our recent collaboration here at Fashion Week has been really more taking technology to the newest level with fashion. And, you know, I'm sure Diane wants to talk about this as well, but it's about how do we connect to the consumer to help create for them precisely what they want. And we have models armed with wearable technology to enable us to produce both beverages as well as perfume based on our interaction with the consumer in asking them certain questions using SAP Qualtrics technology to understand their moods, their likes, to be able to create something that is very unique to them. And so we think that that is just such a beautiful collaboration that's both core to Cirque as a brand and how SAP really wants technology to be able to create a much more personalized experience when it comes to the output that fashion delivers to the consumer.
And I would just add that, you know, I think in the beginning we were very excited about being a mysterious company, and now that's not the case. Now there's such a demand in terms of what Alicia was saying. There's such a demand. People want to know what's going on behind the scenes. People want to be involved in the show. And so when we worked on the app together for Turek, that was the first step. But what it also illustrated to us is that SAP was willing to go further and wanted to go further in terms of that experiential thing. And I think that's why today's project is even more exciting. We're seeing that relationship move in a new direction, and it's where our audience wants us to go.
And so before we get to the Fashion Week collaboration, to get back to how you're actually specifically using that data to then enhance the guest experience, because all, you know, we can understand sort of in theory what you're saying, but then if you can give us an example of, we found that X, and so we did X. I mean, I think that'd be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think, again, what our audience members are telling us and what our super fans are telling us, because we have a lot of super fans, and for that I'm grateful, that they want to know more. They also are very opinionated about the shows. And so we were looking for a tool that would help us interact with the audience, and it would help us understand better what their likes and what their dislikes were about the shows. And that's how we first started to use the SAP app or the Qualtrics application and software, because when you leave the show, you automatically are asked about your likes and dislikes for the show. And because I'm not able yet to clone all of our staff, we can't be everywhere in the world where our shows are, and we have, unique shows everywhere in the world. So it's important to know what an audience member might be thinking of something to do with one of our shows, if we're in Poland, or if we're somewhere in Canada, or the US, or China, because every audience member is reacting differently. So this information that we get feeds back into us in real time, and we can go in and tweak a part of the show if we feel that that's necessary. And that's been a huge tool for us, and has really helped us, I think, guide our artistic process in terms of things that maybe we were also feeling like weren't quite working. It doesn't drive a change, but it helps us determine which changes are the ones to make now.
The other important point I would add, just to pick on what she was saying about, the different regional placements of the performances. And, one thing that we know is there are tremendous cultural nuances country by country. And what Americans may appreciate in a performance can be very different from what a Chinese audience expects and appreciates. And at the end of the day, when you're working to run a business, because at the end of the day, as you had pointed out in our first session, we are all businesses who have goals around growth and revenue and customer loyalty and all of those things that help drive that. It's very important that when Cirque designs a show, yes, it will always preserve the authenticity of the brand, but we also need to make sure that we're sensitive to the cultural nuances that's going to want to keep them coming back time and time again. And so having an ability to extract that information at a consumer level to really understand what they like versus what they dislike by country, to be able to shape that and feed that information back to the artists that are producing the shows day in and day out, it's valuable information when you start to think about things like loyalty tied to our ability to drive their growth.
And Diane, to get back to the fashion part, this broadly is, I'm like, yes, of course Cirque du Soleil would do that, but then why the leap into the tech with the wardrobe piece of it? Where was that connection made, and when did you make it?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that human performance is extremely important to us. It's at the core of everything that we do. So we knew that we wanted to interact in a human way, but we also wanted to do it in a way that was sensitive to the likes and dislikes, again, of the audience. So how could we make it experiential for them? And everything that the consumer is telling us now, again, is they want to be involved. They want to have a say in not only what they're wearing, but what they're doing. And so we thought it would just be natural to take this kind of choice and put the choice in the hands of our fans. So the idea is that with the prototypes that we've done today, we will put them in the front of house experience or in a VIP experience. And by asking questions to our fans, to the audience, of what kind of day have you had, or what kind of mood are you in, we can actually give them, when they're interacting with whoever is wearing the tech dress, we can give them a very personalized experience. And I think when people come to a Cirque show, they're looking for an experience. They're looking to interact more and more with whether it's the artists or front of house folks or whatever. And this gives them both of those things and provides them choice, input. And I do believe that they will go away feeling much closer to the product. I hate calling it a product, but we are, to the product or the show that they've seen that night. And we think that we can push that even further. So this was the first prototype. You can either through Qualtrics. You are asked a couple of questions by who's ever wearing the dress. We understand better the mood that you're in or what you might be desiring. And through that, we will provide to you either a custom cocktail or mocktail, or you can go to one of our other fashion tech dresses and, again, ask a few questions through Qualtrics, and we will give you a customized fragrance. So again, no matter the mood that you're in, we can provide you something that we hope will enhance the experience of being at this live event.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is, there's so much talk and often debate about the connection between art, science, technology, and what is often underlying all of it, which is emotion. And when you think about us as human beings, we all experience 27 different kinds of feelings. And those feelings drive your preferences. You may like something one day, you may like something the next day entirely different. And it's driven often by your surroundings that derive a certain feeling about how things are going and therefore what your preferences are. And it's interesting because, when you interact with this technology, and one of the things that I have found is, the elixir, the beverage that's created one day could be different the next because, you're asked certain questions about, what are you the most scared of? Are you scared of a snake or are you scared of heartbreak? What is a more delightful picture for you? Is sunshine more delightful to you? Or are clouds and an open field more delightful to you? And so all of these things elicit a certain feeling. And when you elicit a certain feeling, we have an ability to attach that to how you can drive a different experience and what the output of a customized product could look like. Because the reality is, and especially when it comes to fashion, fashion is a statement of you as a human being. And as we've talked about, we might need some guidance and some questions that we want to answer to guide you to precisely what should you be wearing based on who you are and how you feel. And that's what I think that this can be a catalyst for. And when you think about customization at that level, using Qualtrics to be able to obtain that information needed to be able to create something that is totally you, whether it be what you drink, the scent you wear, or the clothes you wear, that's innovation. And I think it's going to take on different forms. I think it will be here to stay. But it's an evolving path that we're on where you can really believe that art and science and technology truly can have a very authentic and meaningful place in terms of what we crave when it comes to fashion as humans.
And I think, the choice of using fashion for us, it's totally on brand because we're known for our costumes. So this wasn't anything that was outside of the realm for us. In fact, we felt it was just the extension of that. And now we can see how we could use not only the software, but how we can use costumes in a new way. And I'm so anxious to get the feedback once we are going to use these tech dresses in our front of house, and of course we will get that information once again from SAP. So it'll be a full circle for us.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. And if all of you haven't seen the dress, you should definitely go online and look at the picture because it's amazing and it just looks unbelievable and like something everyone would want to experience. So congratulations on the partnership. And I wanted to thank Alicia and also Diane for being here with us. This has been an amazing chat. I certainly learned a lot. I learned that I have 27 feelings. I thought I had more than that, but I guess not, because I'm human. And also, I hope that all of you have a great takeaway to take back to your own workplaces and think about. Fashion and tech is something that's going to continue on, and the industry will be focused on it for a long time coming. So on behalf of SAP and IMG and also Bustle, we say goodbye and thank you again and hope you had a great time. Have a great fashion week.
Thank you.
Thank you.